Y'all, we starting.
Yes,
It's
sir.
the TV song.
This one, I know we had it, ornate this one.
Oh,
I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting, board meeting to order, please. Everybody, please rise for the prayer and the pledge.
dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings in our lives. As we work with our administrators and teachers to plan for the coming school year, we ask for your guidance in fashioning programs and strategies to meet the needs of our children. Give us the wisdom we need and the compassion we must have in order to truly address each child as an individual so that he might be successful. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Ms. White, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Foche, roll call, please.
Mrs. Espada? Here. Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Egan? Here. Ms. Jackson? Here. Ms. Lemoyne?
Here.
Mr. England?
Here.
Ms. Dysart is not with us. Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Warner is not with us, and Ms. White? Here.
Thank you, Ms. Foche. I'd like to take a point of privilege, please. We had a longtime employee that passed away, Mr. Charles Penishara. He was a janitor at Carolyn Park Elementary. That's where I grew up, in Carolyn Park. And he was known as the Candy Man, and he worked there over 30 years. He won all kind of awards for being a custodian and that. And so we just want to wish, give our condolences to the family. And he was just a beautiful person. In fact, he came to one of our meetings.
To one of our board meetings. He and his family.
His whole family came, right, yes. So, again, and they're going to have his visitation tomorrow at St. Bernard Memorial Funeral Home. So, again, a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And again, our condolences go out to the Penishara family. Okay, move on to number 4. Motion to incorporate the report of June 2020 General Committee meeting into the minutes of the June 2020 regular monthly meeting. We have a motion by Ms. Jackson, second by Ms. Lamont. This is a roll vote as far as all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So move. Okay, move on to item number 5. Let's see, it's personnel changes for the month of June. Mr. Granberry. Yes. Glad to have you here, though, Mr. Granberry. Good to see you. And Ms. Foche, would you take that over?
You can see that Mr. Granberry and others in our system, in our office, have been very busy as we're continuing to hire teachers for the teachers and employees for the upcoming school year. So, and if you notice, we have a retirement.
Sure enough, we got Kathleen McCarthy. She's from Smith and Parish Group as an education teacher. We wish her all the best in her retirement.
Yeah. Ms. McGaffey has been with us for quite a long time. She works with our 3-year-olds at Smith. She does a fantastic job, and I know she's going to be sadly missed.
Yeah, she'll be thoroughly missed. This is just a information-only item, so we'll move on to item, unless there's any questions from Ms. Foche. Mr. Campbell.
Yes, I mentioned to Mr. Granberry, but there's one that retired last Thursday who's not on here, and I'd like to recognize.
Sure, go right
Sharon Cooper was the
Okay.
secretary at Chalmette High.
That's fantastic.
Right. I think she was one on an earlier board meeting with an effective date, but you're right, Mr. Campbell, she's been absolutely wonderful, secretary at Chalmette High School for many, many years, And you know what they always say, the secretaries, you get in really good with them because they run the school. So she definitely will be missed at the high school.
Yeah, they can
And
make
she
it better.
was a former student,
Well, I was waiting for that one. Former student.
so I wish her well,
All
and
right.
I already have congratulated her.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. All right, move on to item number 6, motion to approve the renewal of excess workers' compensation insurance. This was a recommendation by the committee. Have a motion by Ms. Lemoyne, second by Ms. White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, move on to item number 7. Motion to approve the administration's recommendation for paper, cleaning, and custodial supplies. This was also a recommendation by the committee. We have a motion by Mr. Long, second by Ms. Jackson. Any questions concerning this item? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item number 8, motion to approve the administration request for monthly produce solicitations. This was a recommendation by the committee.
Make a motion.
A motion by Ms. White, second by Ms. Lemoyne. Any questions on this issue? We got Mr. Fernandez here to answer any questions if y'all have any. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Yes,
Who seconded that motion?
Ms. Lemoyne.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, item number 9, motion to approve the administration recommendation for milk and milk products. This was a recommendation by the committee. We have a motion by Mr. Campbell, second by Mr. Estevado. Any questions from Mr. Fernandez on this issue? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item number 10, motion to approve the administration recommendation for bread and bread products. This was a recommendation by the committee. We have a motion by Ms. Lemoyne, second by Ms. Jackson. Any questions from Mr. Fernandez? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Okay, item number 11, motion to approve the administration recommendation for bids received for spices and seasonings, Class 2, cereal, dry beans and crackers, Class 3, frozen foods, Class 5, meat and meat products, Class 6, poultry and eggs, Class 7, seafood products, Class 8, canned goods, Class 9, for the period of June 30, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. This was a recommendation by the committee. We have a motion by Mr. Egan, second by Ms. Jackson. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Okay, now we got a new item on the agenda here that wasn't at the committee. It's item number 12, motion to approve the bid tabulation for Triste Middle School gym roof replacement. This was no recommendation from the committee, so it's on tonight. How you doing, Jason?
Doing well,
Good.
sir. Thank
Welcome
you.
here tonight, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to review our bid tabulation on the Triste roofing project. We are undertaking, on the gymnasium portion of the Triste roof, a full roof restoration. It's due and needs to be done. The bid tabulation took place yesterday. We received 4 bids, with the low bidder being Roofing Solutions LLC, which is based out of the Prairieville area and is a company we're familiar with, well vetted, and their bid came in at $194,020, and that was the low bid for the project.
Right. Well, Jason, let me ask you this. Is they tearing the whole roof off, or are they just doing spot repairs?
So we have a lot of spot repair that's been done. That roof has never been fully replaced, only
Right.
repaired over the years, so which is why we're doing the restoration. This won't be a complete rip-off, like we're not pulling everything off and completely redoing the roof. We're leaving the existing roof base in place. However, we're doing a liquid applied roofing membrane over the entirety of the gymnasium. So it will be a new roof when it's finished, but we don't have to do all of the demo and incur that time and cost associated.
Right, because I remember years ago, we did this roof repair at the gym. We had leaks.
Yes,
When we
yes,
did
sir.
the gym, and we had major repairs.
Yes, sir, and that's what we're trying to avoid continuing. We don't want to chase leaks and have that problem. We want to have a complete warranted and in total roof in place to assure that those things are not happening.
Okay. And this will be completed before school?
It will be largely completed before school. Our goal is to have it done by the time students return. It is possible some follow-up will be happening with inspections for warranties and such, but we will have the anything disruptive will be done prior to the school year beginning.
That's what I was looking at, so it doesn't disturb the teaching
Yes, sir,
aspects of our
absolutely.
school system.
Of
Right.
course.
Okay, fine. All right. Any questions from board members? We're going to need a motion.
I'll make
Ms.
a
Lemoyne?
motion that we accept the lowest bidder.
Thank you, Ms. Lemoyne. Second by Ms. Escobedo. Any further questions from Mr. Dewey? If being none, all in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Dewey.
While
Right,
Mr.
sorry.
Dewey is here,
Okay.
and as part of, I guess, 14, when I would do mine, we were going to update a little bit on the overhang outside of the Chalmette High Ninth Grade Academy, as well as the project at Lacoste. And while he was here, I would hope that maybe he could speak to both of those at this time.
Sure.
Okay?
The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Fauché. So starting with the Chalmette High School Ninth Grade Academy project, work is underway on that project as we speak. We have done some of the grading and leveling of the area where we are installing the new paved area that eventually we will have an awning and canopy over top of. They have dug out all the spacing for the footers, and we're having a brief weather delay this week, as everybody can see, before we can pour those cement footers. But once this weather clears up, we're going to have the footers in, and then the framework for the covering and canopies all in place.
Okay.
Then at that point, they can pour one monolithic slab to take care of this project. So it'll be done neatly, without seams, professionally finished and tied into the drainage. The last piece of the project will be going up with both of the flat panels as well as the radius roofing. And the radius is going to be a transparent radius, similar to what you see in the courtyards at Chalmette High
Chalmette High
School on the
School.
main campus side. Except it won't be just the one angle. We'll actually have a radius roofing over the cover of it with two flat panel sides.
I know you made Ms. Bullock very happy right now. huh?
Ms. Boackle is indeed very happy with the project, and we are on track for a timely completion prior to school starting with that as well. So, barring any unforeseen act of God type situation, we will be done with that well before the school year starts.
Great.
Yes, sir. And then also, I'm sorry, were there any questions
Questions
on the Freshman Academy project? I apologize. Just stepping into the Lacoste Elementary project,
Yeah.
I think as everyone is aware, we have the new lots behind Lacoste Elementary. I have met with our contractor, and he has walked that property along with Ms. Morell and also Ms. Jackson as well, not with us for that walkthrough, but gave us her guidance on that as well. And we have taken a look at that. I've gotten some initial look at that, and we are ready to begin with that project as soon as we can get full pricing and approval to us, and that is forthcoming. But the project, we hope, will allow for us to incorporate some new basketball areas, 4 new goals, also with the markings for the goals, free throw lines, 3-point type thing. 4 quarter courts is basically what we're trying to do. Also to tie it into the existing walk path coming off of the gymnasium so that we have a safe access to this area, as well as the lot behind where the basketball goals will be going in. And that green area will be continuously fenced in with the decorative metal fencing we already have up. We're going to continue that and make that an extension of the property, as well as fully level grade, take care of drainage for that lot, make sure that it is ready for them to go out, play on, and engage in right away. Also an outdoor classroom area, potentially with a 15 by 30 slab and a pavilion style cover there, and all of the accompanying benches and tables that need to happen for that project to take place. So that is the overarching idea for that area. And of course, we'll look at any landscaping and things to, beautify that area as well as we're doing the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Ms. Boccia?
That's it.
That's it. Thank you, sir, for your
Thank you
time.
very much, guys. Have a great night.
Same to you. Okay. Move on to item number 13, items to be placed on the agenda for next committee meeting. You have 5 days before the committee meeting, if you want to add anything. If not, just give myself a call, Diana, Doris, or Ms. Benazak a call, and we'll be glad to put it on the agenda. Okay? Okay, item number 14, Superintendents Recommendations. Ms. Foche.
Just a little bit update on where we stand. I know everyone is very anxious as we approach the beginning of the school year as to what exactly is going to be happening. And I know that our administrators, and we've been furiously planning different types of scenarios for what will take place at the beginning of the school year. The governor came out yesterday and announced that we're remaining in phase 2 of the reopening at this point for another 28 days. We are really hoping that at the end of that period of time, which would be toward the end of July, we could enter phase 3, because that lifts a lot of the restrictions under which we will have to operate. But assuming that we're in phase 2, I still think that we can handle that with the majority of our kids, especially the younger ones, being in school in a brick and mortar building each day. Our goal is to, especially for our elementary schools, our pre-K through 5th grade elementary schools, is to have our students in the buildings every day. The middle and high school, it will depend upon the phase of recovery and how we can meet the guidelines that are going to be set up, if we can have them in school every day or having to do a blended online learning where they would be in school some days and remote instruction on alternate days. The governor and the state superintendent of education, Cade Brumley, they're coming out with guidelines later this week as to what phase 1 looks like, phase 2 looks like, phase 3 looks like in relation to schools. Phase 2 is going to look, and these are just, these guidelines are going to be things that we do have to follow. If we're in phase 2, they're looking at group sizes of no more than 25, and that includes adults, but 25 with some type of social distancing. For younger students, that could look like intact groups of kids. So for example, if we had a 1st grade classroom, a 1st grade class, if that class of 20 kids moved together intact, then that could suffice for having them 6 feet apart. They could be in a classroom maybe with desks less than that apart, but as long as they remain intact and they don't mingle with the other groups, then that satisfies that particular guideline. So what we're doing right now, I have Mr. Dewey and some of our principals out there at the elementary schools, we're looking to possibly take every extraneous piece of furniture out of the classrooms. For example, storage cabinets or shelving that might be freestanding, things that might take up room where we can space workstations for kids a little bit further apart. But we could have 20, and most of our elementary classes are around 20 students per class. We might have 20 in some, 22 in others, 18 in others, depending upon what school and what grade level. So we think the biggest issue will be transporting students. The guidelines that we anticipate under phase 2 would be to take the manufacturer's capacity of the bus, whatever they say the number of children it will hold. Phase 2 allows a 50% ridership. So if the bus holds 66 kids, for example, then we could put a little over 30 kids on the bus. Phase one was much more restrictive in that you had to put one per seat every other seat. But in phase two, it's a 50% capacity on the manufactured labeled capacity of the bus. If we get to phase three, we can put a 75% capacity. So Ms. Gennard is furiously looking at routes to see how and what we can do to make that transportation model work, assuming we're going to be under phase two. May mean multiple trips that we would have to take. We may have to look at times for the schools by a few minutes one way or the other. These are all the different possibilities we're looking at, but the goal is to have our elementary students in our buildings each day as long as the state maintains that phase two reentry model, phase two or above. As the year progresses, things may go back and forth. If there's an uptick in the spread of this virus throughout the state, it may necessitate closing for a few days, closing for a week. These things are going to be outlined with a little more specificity as we go along. So right now, we're developing multiple plans with that particular goal in mind and looking to see how we can transport children safely and effectively, how we can teach within the buildings and at home, and make sure that we're producing a quality product. Our teachers have been working very hard on the instructional part of this. If we have to do any type of remote learning at whatever level or whatever times. The learning management system that Ms. Lametta talked about at the committee meeting, we're refining that, where all of the lessons and the activities and the curriculum will be there in one place, so we can produce a better product for this coming year than we were able to do, say, for the last 9 weeks of the school year. So things may look different. It may look different from day to day, week to week, month to month. What we're planning today may change 2 weeks from now, may change again next month, and the week before we open, we may change again, depending upon what the outlook of the state is. But the Louisiana Department of Health, the Governor's Office, the Bessie Board, the State Department of Education, all of these groups of people were in conversation. We have guidelines that are set up depending on what phase that we're in, and each school district across the state of Louisiana is developing plans that will fit within the guidelines that we will be given. If anybody has any thoughts or questions, I'll be happy. Mr. Egan.
Yes, if I can work this thing again. I'm concerned, you've covered it really. I mean, you've made plans for almost every contingency I could think of. But what about feeding the kids?
Okay, that's another issue too. In the cafeterias, we're looking to see what are the maximum number of kids that we can feed, say, within the cafeteria itself, maintaining the distancing guidelines, looking to see potentially if we sit you on one side of the table and not across from each other, how far apart do we have to put them, and trying to look at the little ones maybe staying within the confines of the cafeteria. If we have to, some of the older ones we may be feeding them in the classrooms, which is a different scenario. Breakfast may be grab-and-go breakfast into the classroom. The lunches, there's possibility of either bringing them to the classrooms or having, if you're 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, you walk through the line, you get a hinged plate, take it back to the classroom and you eat it within your intact group there. It depends on the size of our cafeterias. It depends upon the size of the student body in that school. One of the principals said, well, let's see. I could start lunch at 9:30, and by the time we get them all through, it'll be time to catch the buses, you
Right.
know, if you fed them all in the cafeteria. So we have different scenarios planned, and it may look a little different at each school, depending upon the size of the cafeteria, the size of the student body, and what we're able to do within the guidelines. I was on a conference call today where we had the health official who's working in conjunction talking with us, and something as simple as people think, oh, temperature checks. You got to check every kid's temperature when they come in. Well, the first thing they talked about would do it before they get on the bus. They tried that with the summer camps throughout the state. It was an abysmal failure for many, many different reasons, because you're taking them out of the heat, you're doing it, it didn't work. So now what they're telling us to do is to bring the child to school, and you do it as they enter school. If you don't want kids clustered at openings where you might have 100 kids waiting, you know, to come in, and you're trying to do the temperatures, now they're telling us have them go to the homerooms and do it there. So there are multiple scenarios as we go through what the suggestions are, and especially the older kids. You take a school as large as our high school and think in terms of, if we have to check every student and employee's temperature before they walk into the high school, what that would entail. And then if we've got to do it as they enter a homeroom, just let's think of the number of devices we're going to need that actually work and operate each day. So all these things which seem, oh, just do this to somebody, when you actually have to do it, is an extremely difficult to plan logistically and make it work. The wearing of the masks, they're talking about kids above the 5th grade. Students wearing masks, teachers wearing, or face coverings of some sort, with the adults and with students 5th grade and above. That's under discussion at this point. So, you know, the washing of the hands every 2 hours, or using sanitizer. If kids change periods, like middle and high school, disinfecting the spaces is at the end of every period. Well, think of how that works in a large setting in a school, and who's going to do it, and how are you going to do it that quick? We have 3 minutes between classes. Talking about kids walking down hallways. They want you to stagger the times classes end in different parts of your building, and route kids walking one way and not walking both ways down a hall. So we're looking at all of these different things that they are recommending that we do. Some are actual guidelines, which are the things that they feel are essential, and then some they're terming best practices, which are suggestions to do it most effectively. So we're balancing those scenarios too. What can we do that we have to do, because these are the most important things? And then from this body, what can we do and still be able to operate effectively? Yes, sir.
I have another question.
Sure.
Because I've experienced, not myself personally, but they got these little gizmos when you go, you know, my wife is having some problems, and it's a little thing, and let me tell you, when they test it, they put it by your head and they hit it, it takes no more than about 10 seconds, if it takes that long, and it gives the reading. Will our nurses, or anybody can actually use the machine? It's like a little handheld.
Right, it's like a
Looks
little,
gun.
we have some of those.
We have them?
Well, we have some of them. Now, would we have enough to give to every teacher in the entire school district
Yeah, well, that's
to do it with every child that they, you know, in the morning? Take a look at the high school. We have 1,900 kids. You know, it's really easy to say, but we would have to make sure that every teacher in every classroom would have it, and when that student walked in first period in the morning, that teacher would be responsible for checking those 25, 30, however many kids are in that class that's coming in. So the devices, we are, Mr. Dewey, who was here a few minutes ago, is ordering and placing and searching for many, many different items. Everything from masks to sanitizers to thermometers to disinfectants to gloves to spray bottles to spray backpacks. I mean, we are looking at purchasing a great deal of equipment and supplies before you can't get them. You know.
Well,
So we've been building our little corner of the world stockpile. And I do want to mention that John Rayam at Parish Government, our local OEP guy, has been very, very helpful. He has helped us with supplying masks through his office with the state, and always works very closely with us. You know, John and I, we've worked extremely closely for years, and he's been very, very good. So any supplies that they would be able to get through the state OEP, we're always on the list as well with him. So
well,
we're tapping every resource.
as usual, our superintendent is on the ball. And I was just concerned about that, but these little things they got, like the old thermometers, put it in your mouth and all that
Right,
jazz,
over.
they put that thing on your head and you pull it,
Didn't you
and
go
it's
back
about
to
10
what-
seconds.
Yes,
And
right.
it gives a reading, and that's it. So, I mean, and I've been going through, you're going to the hospital with my wife, and, you know, they even do it to me, and I can't even go around with her. I have to sit in the waiting room. But they hit me every time I go in, and it's, they know, you'll tell me,
You know-
they'll tell you what it is.
And speaking of sitting in the waiting room, and what I think our parents have to understand and community members, we are probably going to be closing down our buildings to anyone other than our students. So those doors are going to be effectively closed. We're not going to allow adults, parents, vendors, anybody to be walking in and out. It would have to be by some type of an appointment if there's business to be had, but we can't manage everything we have to manage within the school, then allow people to be coming on and off the campus without, I guess, an appointed time, because there'll be so much going on. So it's going to be a little change, too, in terms of access by anyone other than the students.
I'm sure y'all have checked almost everything, but, you know, just as he said just a few moments ago, things could change, and,
Yeah.
you know, they could come in with something else, and you say, oh, and because of the number of children we're gonna have, and students, of course, and just our personnel, that's gonna be a booger
Yes.
to deal with, but I'm sure from what you have said and the information that I've picked up today, I feel confident that we can do it.
Well,
We can do it.
we're all working very hard, and you know how they say about the best
Exactly.
laid plans. You know, we're doing our best.
I'm happy with it.
Mr. Long?
I have a quick question, Doris. After the governor determines what phase we in, who's going to make the final decision as far as the guidelines?
The
Is it the Bessie Board or?
Well, yeah, the State Department of
Education.
Education, with the Bessie Board and the Governor's Office, and Louisiana Public Health. All of those agencies are intertwined, and they're putting out the guidelines together. So it's coming out of one source with input from all of those agencies. There's a regional medical director, our region in Region 1, I think you've seen him, Dr. Joseph Cantor. You've seen him on
Right,
television and whatever.
right.
He's the regional medical director. We will have access to him and his staff if we have any particular questions. They've enlisted two of the physicians at Children's Hospital to be another resource to the people in our area. And I know our nurses right now work very closely with them anyway on all other issues. So the medical assistance that we have set up through those state agencies will filter through those particular groups
Okay, thank
when
you.
we have questions.
Okay.
Mr. Acevedo.
Yeah. You didn't mention nothing about activities after school in football, sports. They're not going to start
Well-
with that immediately.
Right, the Louisiana High School Athletic Association have put out guidelines, and they've worked in conjunction with the health officials and the Department of Ed as well. High-risk contact sports won't be allowed until phase 3, and that includes football. And really band and vocal music, to be honest, because of the instruments and the singing, and you know how live performances are not being allowed at this point. Until we get in phase 3, those activities are not going to occur, even if we're opening school. So the medium risk sports, which are pretty well all the rest of them that we have, can occur under these guidelines. Now this summer, under the LHSAA guidelines, we are currently having some workouts and practices as we speak right now. And our coaches and sponsors are following those guidelines that are set out. So you may see the football team doing some practices outside right now. You may see the cheerleaders doing their little, their workouts, the dance teams at the high schools, and volleyball and different sports that over the summer are allowed to do conditioning and practicing. So they are doing it. They have the guidelines set. The coaches are following those guidelines in terms of temperature taking, in terms of distancing, and so far they're doing a good job from what I understand. So we'll be moving into that as soon as we are allowed to. So like I said, football will be iffy until we find out if it's going to be allowed. You can just look in the country right now, even with the pro sports, everything's up in the air with that as well. So
Ms.
a
Jackson.
little bit at a time. Yes, ma'am.
So do you recommend parents move forward with starting to purchase school supplies, uniforms, those things? It's a relatively safe bet that the kids will be in school in some form or another,
No.
at least.
If we stay in phase 2 or above, we will be in our buildings for our elementary schools and in some form of buildings and or remote learning at the higher levels, at the upper levels.
Okay, so we have the go-ahead.
So that's what I'm shooting for, unless somebody
Okay.
stops us.
It's going to be an interesting few months coming up. Huh?
Oh, it's gonna, we thought, I'll look back, I've had a very interesting career. Going through all the Katrina things, and then now we're into a whole nother realm of uncertainty, and I don't know, I guess when it's too calm, it's just not challenging enough, so keeps us going.
It reminds me of in Laughing, they used to have that little German guy who used to say, very interesting.
I remember that.
If people remember that, right, yeah.
I definitely
Well,
remember.
I do remember that. But before we join tonight, I just want to, Mr. Barry Lemoyne, with Penn TV, his mother passed away. We wanted to send out the condolences to the Lemoyne family. Barry does a fantastic job for our school system, so his condolences go out to them. Right. So, okay. Any other questions for Ms. Foche before we? Okay. So we'll move on to item number 15, adjournment. Ms. Acevedo, Mr. Campbell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good night.